Hello homies, would you like to get your next order of homeopathic remedies for free? Then sign up to become an affiliate of Eugenie Kruger Homeopathy by visiting eugeniekruger.com/affiliates. You will receive an affiliate code which you can give to your friends and family. They can then use your code when they purchase products at eugeniekruger.com and they will receive 5% off their first order. The best part is that you will receive 5% of whatever they purchase through our site for their first year. This will go as a store credit on your account, so when you're ready to stock up on our amazing remedies and other products, your credit will be sitting there waiting for you. How amazing is that? So check out www.eugeniekruger.com/affiliates. Hello homies, I just wanted to thank you for tuning in today. Also, please feel free to flick me an email. I've had a few emails from all around the world of people saying that they're enjoying this podcast, and I really love hearing from you. So yeah, if you wanted to touch base, email info@eugeniekruger.com. With that aside, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our guest today, Lisa Strbac, who is also a podcast host. Now, in the 200 plus year history of homeopathy, did you know that some of our best homeopaths were skeptics? And Lisa is no different. So Lisa is a certified homeopath and health coach who discovered the power of self-healing when conventional medicine failed to resolve her young daughter's chronic health issue. So coming from a place of skepticism, she was astounded at the results she saw after giving her daughter her first ever homeopathic remedy. So utilizing homeopathy alongside diet and lifestyle changes, her daughter made a full recovery from a debilitating autoimmune condition. Now, Lisa also hosts the Raw Health Rebel podcast, as featured in Apple UK's Alternative Health all-time bestsellers. It's a bright and growing podcast which spreads the word of true health, explores natural healing, and empowers its listeners with a message that true healing comes from within. So I think you'll really enjoy today's podcast, and let's jump straight in.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout podcast, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello homies. Today we get to hang out with homeopath Lisa Strbac all the way from the UK. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to have you on. Now, Lisa is actually a fellow podcaster, and she has got a great podcast called Raw Health Rebel. So I wonder if you can maybe chat a little bit about that, and how did you decide to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it was a bit of synchronicity. I actually got asked by someone that I really respected on Instagram to share my story of my daughter. She had a vaccine injury and subsequently how I found homeopathy. And my instant reaction was, I can't do that. Like, I just felt like I couldn't. I still had obviously blocks in my throat chakra. I felt like I couldn't talk that openly. And then overnight, just one day, I had this thought of, do you know what? You can't share your story with someone else until you've shared your own story in your own way. So I'm going to do my own podcast. It came out of nowhere, and I had a sort of fear of public speaking. And my friend had asked me to do a public speaking course. And that very morning that I woke up with this idea, she said, Lisa, before you do this public speaking course, there's a podcast workshop running tonight. You might want to go on it. And I thought, oh, what's to lose? It was like a 2-hour workshop, and I'd had a really busy day at work. And I thought, oh, I'll just hang out in the background. It's on the Zoom. I don't even have to really participate if I don't want to. And then lo and behold, it was a course. There were 6 Toastmasters on the course, and a radio presenter was running it, and there was nowhere to hide. And she was like, right, go and download the software and come back with your intro. Here's how to do it. So within 24 hours of deciding, I might share my story on a podcast, I had my own podcast up and running the next day. And I was like, right, you've got to get your story out there. So I shared sort of my first episode, my story, and then I decided, the world needs to know about homeopathy. I interviewed some homeopaths, but also just alternative ways of living. There's chiropractors, there's health influencers, health activists, people on natural law. So it's quite wide ranging, but yeah, that was how it began. So it was pure universe acting. There was kind of I was pushed into it. So yeah,
That's
it's
the
quite
best kind. Oh, I love when people share their stories about homeopathy. So I so resonate with you there. Homeopathy is so amazing, and it's so great to get it out there for people to enjoy and experience. But I wonder, Melissa, if you can tell us a little bit about how you first discovered homeopathy, because you actually have an accounting background, right?
Yes, don't hold that against me, everyone. So yeah, basically I discovered homeopathy through my eldest daughter. She had, it's a story that we hear a lot as homeopaths now. She was cesarean born. She had a lot of health issues, constant antibiotics, ear infections. So there was a lot of suppression, and build up of long-term acute illnesses. And it was actually a vaccine, the flu vaccine, that tipped her over the edge. We lived a nightmare, and we went to various specialists. We went to Great Ormond Street, and their only solution was to put her on prophylactic antibiotics for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, at this point, I was like, I haven't listened to my mother's intuition. I hadn't really wanted to vaccinate her with all the vaccines she'd had at certain points, but I was told by the doctors, that's what you do. And I wanted to be a good mum, and I wanted to listen to what the doctors told me because they knew best. So, I'd always gone along, but at this point I thought, well, going along with everything I've been told has led us to this point. And for me, just in my basic gut was like, I can't give her antibiotics for a year. And this was 6 years ago. So back then, the whole gut-brain connection, it's very sort of much more mainstream knowledge now. But back then, it wasn't really, it was a little bit, but not as, probiotics are everywhere. So I remember thinking, God, I'm completely on my own. And I read some books on a great book, Healing the New Childhood Epidemics by Kenneth Bok, which is much more biomed. So we started off down that route. But I was still like, it's not really getting to the root cause. I felt like I'd substituted allopathic medicine for just herbs and supplements. And I thought, how's that going to really heal the root cause? And at this time, I happened to read this book called Toxic World, Toxic People. And it had a chapter on vaccines, but it had a bit written by Dr. Jane Donegan, who's a homeopath. And she talked about healing, basically. What she said made perfect sense. And I thought, I've got to go and see this homeopath. And because she was a doctor, it felt more palatable at that point, because it was still, a stepping stone from my previous mindset to something a bit more alternative. And I got in touch with Jane Donegan, and she said, well, before, I treat your daughter, just come to a course that I'm doing, a one-day course on raising healthy children. And it was mind-blowing. It was about terrain theory, but she didn't use the word terrain theory. She did it in a really amazing way, just that anyone could understand. And it was all about toxic overload and suppression, and how we get ill when we actually need to release that toxic burden. And I was like, my husband and me were like, oh my God, everything we've done has been wrong. It was so obvious what she was saying. And she even quoted bits from the National Institute of Clinical Excellence on how we shouldn't use paracetamol and ibuprofen to manage fevers. And we were like, why do people not know this? Every parent should go on this course. So I went to see her and did a homeopathy consultation. But I have to say, even having the utmost respect for her and having gone to the seminar, I was like, what is this? What is this, crazy consultation? She's asking me about my daughter's dreams. She's asking me about what food she likes. This just seems like, some overinflated personality quiz. It just seemed slightly ridiculous. And then, this is obviously how little I knew, she got her books out, and I was like, she's even looking up in her books. She doesn't know the answer, and as a homeopath, that's what we do. We look in our books, look up the rubrics. So I was like, this is just a bit too much. So I walked out, and I was like, oh, I had such high hopes for that, but it seems a bit of old twiddle twaddle. So I can't, and I shelved the homeopathy because I was still skeptical, having gone through all of that. And then my daughter had another flare. And at the time, her biomedical doctor was like, Lisa, just try the homeopathy. You have nothing to lose. And the first remedy that Jane had prescribed was a bowel nosode. It was Proteus. And I gave my daughter the Proteus. I put it in water, And I gave my daughter just a sip of water, and she didn't even know that she was having the homeopathy. So there was no placebo effect because she didn't know that I'd given her a drink with it in. And what I witnessed was like, I was like, what the hell have I just done? She had the most like brilliant reaction, but having not known, that this could happen, I was slightly alarmed because she instantly started screaming her ears hurt after I gave it to her. Now, my daughter had a history of over 20 ear infections up to the age of 4, and she'd never had pain with the ear infections. I would only know she had one because her behaviour would change and it would trigger a flare. So it was like her body suddenly did what it meant to do. It should have done. And so she first started screaming her ears hurt. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I actually phoned the homeopathic helpline, and they were like, give her some chamomilla, really low potency, just to help see her through it. And then that evening, she then got a rash all over her back. And then the next morning she woke up and I thought, has someone drawn on her with a pen? She had these like greyish red marks going all the way down, like cat scratch. And I think that was probably Bartonella, the cat scratch rash coming out. It was just drawing everything out. And I was like, what have I done? What is this? Went on Google, went on Wikipedia. I was like, it's pseudoscience. And I was like, this is not pseudoscience. I was like, what is in this? This is magical. This is, and I was nervous because it was most people don't get reactions like this. But I think
that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think it was my journey to see that reaction to become a homeopath. So, and then within 48 hours, it had all settled down. She was happier, calmer, more content, like a 5-year-old should be. And it was just, I was at that moment, I was like, this is, our path and the way forward. So it was phenomenal. And within 2 weeks of that, I had actually, I just devoured, homeopathy books. I had thought, I've got to study this, and I signed up at CHE. So that was in the July, and by the August, I'd signed up for the course because I was like, I have to know more. So yeah, it was amazing. Thank you, Proteus. It was phenomenal.
Proteus is an amazing remedy, and that's a very quick journey from complete newbie to actually enrolling into a course.
Yeah, but it was like, and I remember going to the open day at CHE, and Marcus Fernandez, who's the principal there, said to me, you don't find homeopathy, it finds you. And I was like, that is so true, because if someone had told me a year before that this, I'd be studying homeopathy and, using it almost exclusively for my family, I'd be like, you're nuts. That's not going to happen. So
amazing.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Definitely homeopathy found me as well, because I enrolled to be a naturopath, and I didn't at that stage even know what homeopathy was. I had no idea. And then we were forced to do this introduction to homeopathy paper. And I was really annoyed because I couldn't get out of it. It was one of the, prerequisites that you had to do. And within that first hour, I completely changed my pathway to become a homeopath instead. So I would definitely agree with you there. Homeopathy found me.
Oh,
not the other way around. So Lisa, what other things have you used homeopathy for in your home since then?
Oh, so I've used it actually. This was quite a good story as well. So for whooping cough in the house. So, and this is a slightly straight, it sounds a bit strange as to how it transpired. But and this is the other thing to mention, homeopathy, although we saw that spectacular result, it's still a journey. It still took 2 years really of regular seeing a homeopath to get to a really healed position, and we saw improvements along the way. Always, sometimes remedies would have more spectacular effects than others, and sometimes they were more subtle. But healing is a journey. So that's the other thing I want to say for anyone listening. It's very rare going to be you'll see a homeopath and within one remedy you're fixed. You need to commit to it. So about maybe, a year to 18 months in, we went to see my daughter's homeopath, the great Hilary Dorian. And she prescribed my daughter a remedy, and something really strange happened after she was given this remedy. So my daughter she'd always had like a chronic cough, and she just she coughed in my husband's face, and he went, don't cough in my face, you'll give me something. And it was really weird that, that would never normally happen. within less than a few hours, he was came down with a fever and was just flat out on the sofa. He couldn't move. He was really ill. And then he basically got whooping cough. And we spoke to Hilary about it and said, this is really weird because, my daughter coughed and then that happened. And she said there was probably some energy exchange going on. And for whatever reason, that needed to happen. And he was so ill for weeks, months. It was about after 2 months, he cracked his ribs. He was coughing so much. And he was vomiting all the time. It was really awful. And he didn't really want, he's much more, no, I won't take anything. But in the end, after being off work for 2 months, I said, and he's had his own business, I said, please go and see my homeopath. And he had his aha moment because, the doctors, the allopathic doctors wanted to put him on asthma medication to help with the coughing. And, they were going for x-rays, but they said there's nothing else they could do. Within 24 hours of having the remedies, he was significantly better. And then he went back one more time and it completely shifted. And I also had whooping cough at that point. But I was given a different set of remedies. He was actually given tuberculinum and then causticum and phosphorus. I was given medarinum because for me, and this is again how different people present with the same illness, his was all in the chest coughing, as where when I had the whooping cough, I did cough a bit, but mine was more in the sinus. I felt like I was so congested. And after having had the medarinum that night, I literally, it was disgusting. I felt like water was just running out of my nose. It's like the equivalent of a whole human being of water. And I woke up the next day just thinking, I can breathe again. So I think for people listening, I don't tend to treat myself or my husband. For acutes we might, but not for chronic illnesses because you just can't see clearly enough. And also just how differently different people present. And the other thing that was interesting about the whooping cough, the lungs are associated with grief, from traditional Chinese medicine. And I think that part of our healing journey and my daughter's healing journey, I actually lost my first baby, our son, very late on in our pregnancy. And we'd often carried that grief around, which was part of probably laying that foundation and susceptibility for my daughter's ill health. But after we got whooping cough, there was, and we were actually treated with, well, my husband particularly, with grief remedies. There was an emotional healing that took place as well. So I think because we hadn't necessarily addressed some of our emotional trauma previously, that illness that we both had in the house was giving us the chance to express, what we needed to and untrap those emotions that we've been holding on to. So, I think homeopathy has the potential to help heal on a very deep level, not just physically. And if we don't do the work, I think our body will do the work for us.
And you've just given me a beautiful little segue into the next question I was going to ask, which is, where do you see homeopathy's power and what things can homeopathy help with that the general public might not necessarily think of?
Yes, so I definitely think, emotional healing. So I did a Instagram Q&A the other day, and I had a few people ask me, can it help with, anxiety or an emotional trauma? And I was like, yes. How do people, like, to me, it was obvious. I've never really sort of said that on any of my, social media. I've never said about, I've often said it can help with acutes and this. So I think that is where its power really lies, because in my mind, I think that most physical illnesses are because of emotional events. That's how it happens. It happens with the thought, and then that catalyst creates, disturbances, or if it's not processed properly around the body. So I think if we can address emotional healing, and homeopathy is amazing for that. And actually, when I see patients anyway, they come in about eczema or, some physical illness. But when you take their story and their case and you go back, when did it start? Or, what is the central disturbance in that case? It's so often an emotional event. And actually, if we could just spread the message of homeopathy that it can just help with that, people would come in actually with quite a different expectation as well, about what they expect from the consultation. And I've found that some of my personally most rewarding cases have been those that have come to me from the outset with severe anxiety or depression, and because just the talking starts the healing process. And then when they take the remedies, they will be much more aware of how it's affecting them emotionally. As well, if someone comes with eczema and you say, you'll take a remedy, but look out for emotional changes or how it might change your dreams, they can be a bit like, what? But you're helping me with my skin. And you have to talk about the whole process, the mind-body connection. So I think that's where its power really, really, really lies.
I agree. Sometimes I wonder if maybe it's a good thing that people don't know just how much we talk about the mental emotional side in a consultation, because I think a lot of people might not go to a homeopath if they knew, a classic case was a client, like 8 years ago. I remember it so well. She came in for a plantar wart on her foot that she'd had for like 10 years. And, before she knew it, we were talking about her childhood and, all the trauma that was associated with that. And at the end, she was like, oh, I feel so good after talking through all of that. And we gave her a remedy. And of course, her wart was gone after about a month. But I sometimes think if people knew how much we talk about the mental emotions, maybe that would put them off and they wouldn't come in the first place. So I don't know. I often wonder about that because people just do not realize how powerful homeopathy is to help with those really deep emotions, and how a lot of your physical symptoms are just manifestations of some mental emotional disharmony or something else that's out of balance in the body, which then gives you this thing called a symptom to let you know things are out of whack.
Yeah, beautifully put, definitely. And I think, and also you don't that's the other thing to caveat, you don't have to talk about that. And
absolutely.
Homeopathy can go as deep as you want to go. That's the other beautiful thing. I've had patients come in and they don't want to talk about anything emotional, and you treat them more on a therapeutic level. So but I just feel personally that's where the power lies for me and the patients that I see, and that's the path I want to go down.
And I just want to back up what you've said. Absolutely. We will only ever treat the client where they're at, and we will never prod further than where they're happy to go. I think as homeopaths, we're incredibly respectful of people's unique healing journey and just respecting them where they are. So I completely agree with you there. I'm glad you clarified that.
And the other thing, I guess the other area where I see its power lies or is going to be needed is detoxing. And I have often, very early on, especially when you look at the classical homeopathy with the view of you take, a core constitutional remedy, it can kind of heal everything. I'm just thinking nowadays we're so much more toxic, heavy than people were in Hahnemann's time, where perhaps a good constitutional remedy could help with everything. I think we have so much toxic overload. And I've been doing some of Ton Janssen's postgrad seminars on homeopathic detox. So that's an area where I think with the with what's going on with them, and not just vaccines, with glyphosate and all sorts of toxins there, antibiotics, contraceptives, how we can help clear those. So I think that's the other sort of core progressive route of homeopathy.
That's another area of passion of mine. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I also love Ton Janssen's method, and I've been using it for just over 2 years, maybe 3 years now. And like you said, we can detox basically anything, glyphosate or contraceptives, steroids, Ventolin. Come on, back me up here. What's some other things? Any medication?
IVF treatment as well. That's
general anesthetic. That's another one.
Yep.
Antibiotics.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
There's lots.
Any drugs, basically.
Any drugs.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And you're seeing good results with
oh my gosh, such good results. It's unbelievable. And what's actually fascinated me about homeopathic detox therapy is I was not expecting the emotional changes that I've seen. So I'll never forget one of my clients who we did the MMR detox with her daughter, and she said her daughter has become so much more affectionate since the MMR detox. And I had another lady who did the contraceptive detox, and she said to me, I am feeling gratitude for the first time in my life. I've always known gratitude intellectually, but for the first time I can feel it in my whole being. And I was like, how can a contraceptive detox do that. But I guess, the contraceptive pill is so suppressing on our ovaries, on our reproductive system. So then detoxing this from your body, I guess it makes sense that suddenly you can feel the sensation of gratitude, or the feeling of gratitude. So I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. But it's really amazing. And of course, all the detoxes we do where children regain their speech or their eye contact. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that as well.
Yeah, you know what? That just gave me full on body chills when you're saying that. And I haven't done for myself personally. I really want to do the contraceptive detox, but I'm doing a graphene oxide detox on myself at the minute, and it's really interesting and going really well, but I'm going to do that next. I kind of want to use myself as a guinea pig too.
Absolutely do it. I've done the contraceptive detox as well, and I had some symptoms come up that I was not expecting. So I completely, I always think I've got such a strong vital force, it's not going to affect me. And I was like, first remedy on the 30C, I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. So I highly recommend doing it. It's amazing.
Oh no, did you do it as a poly contraceptive, or did you do the actual? Okay.
No, poly contraceptive. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to do that. I definitely. I just get this one out the way, then I'll do it.
Absolutely. And, just the feedback that we get from clients doing that is just so amazing. And so I agree with you. I think the soil that our children, the terrain that our children are being raised in these days is so different. When I was a child, we didn't have 5G or Wi-Fi, or, we only had about 3 vaccines when I was a child. Children these days have 40 vaccines. There's 10 times more. The rate of C-section wasn't as high. And so there's definitely a lot more onslaught from all different directions. We didn't have GMO foods when I was a child, not as many packaged foods. We didn't even have a McDonald's in the town where I grew up. So I think definitely there's a lot more to blame than just, vaccines. I think there's a lot.
Yeah, completely. It's the whole lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're also involved with Health Freedom for Humanity. Can you please tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is an organisation that I feel really passionate about. So it's run by Alex Zeck. He founded it in the US. And at the moment, it is very much sort of a US-led initiative. And it's all about health freedom, whatever walk of life you come from. It's just about supporting the right for health freedom. And it comes out of a place of sort of love and compassion and empathy. And it's a grassroots initiative, and there's loads of people supporting it. Some really high profile doctors like the amazing Dr. Christian Northrup, Tom Cowan, loads of doctors. But there's also, I hate the word, social media influencers. There's people like Laurie Ladd, spiritual people. So it's lots of different, there's mums, dads, actors, lawyers, all different types, because the point is that we need to come together to whatever your view is on vaccines, whether you're pro or against, you should have the freedom of choice. And that is very much what the initiative's about. So they've recently, and they've got a podcast as well, which is amazing. And that very, very much kept me company during last lockdown. I listened to it all the time, just not feeling alone, that there was other people with a similar mindset. So I recommend people check that out. And
what is the podcast called?
It's called Health Freedom for Humanity. It's so the hashtag Health Freedom for Humanity is blocked on Instagram, and you cannot quote those words or put the logo on Instagram. I actually got my Instagram account removed back in September when I shared Health Freedom for Humanity. So, and I can say there's nothing controversial. It's very much about, but I think it's because it comes from a place of inclusivity and love and compassion. Because I find it interesting that on some social media accounts where they are very opinionated on anti this or anti that or scare, in fear mongering, their accounts are still running and yet and I think half the reason that this keeps getting taken down, and Alex Zeck has been one of the most banned people on Instagram. His account's been taken down 4, 5, 6 times when he gets to about 90,000 followers. It's because he is such a grounded, amazing person. And he doesn't come aggressive. And I think that's more of a threat when someone comes from it from that perspective. So, so they do amazing things. They run workshops. They've got education classes on their website. But they've just started rolling out local chapters. I'm really really honoured to sort of be involved in that, because it's something I feel passionate about.
That sounds amazing. Can you maybe tell us how we can get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So the best place, the place I'm probably most active on, is actually Instagram at the moment. So that's just at Lisa Strbac, which is LISASTRBAC. My website is lisastrbac.com, and my podcast is For Health Rebel. I will be hoping to be more active on my website, just because having been deleted once off Instagram.
Oh my gosh.
It's soul destroying, you know, when your work, and it's made me realise that's not our material that's put there, it's Instagram. So we need to be building our own platforms and putting our energy into websites which we have control of. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that is where I'll be putting my focus on.
Okay, so Lisa, just before we finish off and for a little bit of fun, can you tell us your favourite 3 homeopathic remedies and why?
Yes, great question. So I post about this a lot. I love aconite just because it is so useful for nipping colds in the bud, or acute anxiety. I take it not that I get to fly anymore, but I have a fear of flying, so it's great for that. So yeah, if my youngest daughter would be prone to croup when she was a baby, and if I gave her a dose of aconite in the middle of the night, it would just stop it in its tracks. So that's one of my favourite remedies. And then I also love pulsatilla. That's a remedy that gets used a lot. I'm very pulsatilla. I go into pulsatilla-like states. I know when I'm doing that, because I get a bit weepy and a bit clingy and needy. So I'm like, oh, I think I need some pulsatilla. And my youngest daughter is also very pulsatilla. So that's one of my favourites. And then my third, it's difficult because there are so many great remedies. I think this is a personal favourite of mine, of just being selfish. Medarinum, I love it. When I took Medarinum, I felt so just like I could conquer the world. And Amazing. This was just for me. This won't be for anyone else. It's because it fit me. But I just felt amazing after taking Medarinum. And obviously it's quite closely related to pulsatilla. So I think that says a lot about probably my constitution. But yeah, I think they're my probably top 3.
Amazing. Them. And once you've experienced that magic of your unique remedy, like once you've worked with your homeopath and you've worked out which remedies really suit your constitution, it's wonderful to always be able to fall back on them. Hey, I know I've got a couple that I've used for the past 10 years, and just doesn't matter what's up. If I just need that little bit of a boost or a little bit of a support, or a little bit of, you're going to be okay, I'll just have one dose of my remedy and I'm good again for a little while. And it can work so fast. Hey, once you've got that right remedy.
What are your 2 remedies? Do you mind sharing?
Yes. So I'm a tuberculinum girl, and so is my son. And actually, my daughter saw Hillary as well, and she actually prescribed tuberculinum for her as well, which is interesting because my great-granddad died of tuberculosis. So we have that theme through our family. And I'm a sepia girl, so I can get pretty irritable at certain times of the month. And a dose of sepia, and I'm just nice mummy again.
They are too great. And that's, I love that about homeopathy. It's like that shortcut, like, she's a bit platina, or they need a bit of nitric acid, and you know exactly what you're getting at. So you can tell a lot by a person as to what their sort of go-to remedies are, can't you?
Absolutely, definitely. But then if you've just heard us say these remedies and you go and do a quick Google search and read the Materia Medica, you will never find everything in the Materia Medica that will be in the clients. So if there's any dodgy stuff that you're reading in there on our remedies, I don't know, some homeopaths never reveal their remedy, or some people never reveal their constitutional remedies. But if you see any dodgy stuff in there, that's not us. We're only all the nice things.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Excellent. Oh, well, it's been so fun chatting with you, Lisa. And I'm sending you so much love and so much strength, and really going to be cheering you along for this health freedom for humanity and for all the other projects that you're doing as well. So keep it up. And we really need some freedom fighters at this time that we're in at the moment.
Thank you so much. It's been really lovely to chat. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great fun, and covering serious topics too, while keeping it human and having a laugh. So thank you.
Keeping it real.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Chat soon.